If everybody is ready. Well, good morning, afternoon, or evening. Welcome to Artful Life Summer Playshops. For any of you joining us for the first time, I am BeiBei Song, founder of Essinova, an interdisciplinary academy applying artful thinking and neuroscience to human development, leadership, and innovation. Here with me are my organizing partners for the Playshop project, Anu Sanghvi, who's a product veteran and a blossoming poet, Gina Nasi, customer experience maven and mystic artist. Both of them are my coolest friends from Stanford Business School community where I teach and coach. So part of Essinova's approach is to use art as a vehicle for discovery, exploration, and expression in life, at work, and to the world. What makes us unique is that we empower the whole brain and the full human being, aligning the body and the mind, the heart and soul, cultivating both creativity and emotional social intelligence. Our multimodal programs engage all the senses, recognizing visual, auditory, and kinetic needs and capacity that are often ignored in modern education and corporate learning. We also honor aesthetics values, which we believe is badly needed in the world today with lots of ugliness going on. So last week in our inaugural session, our artist instructor, Vera Stankovic, tricked us into making drawings with our own handwriting in multiple languages of our stream of consciousness thoughts. We were surprised to see the interesting images that we could make in this through the simple process. For many of us, it also revealed our hidden feelings or catalyzed new ideas. So today, Belinda Chlouber will help us explore and express our deeper self in a different way through the power of symbols. Belinda collaborated with me a few times already, and I'll just quickly show some examples of our projects last year. First with a midlife retreat Essinova organized, and then a Wharton Executive Education program, the Mastering Innovation program, where I taught a course, and then again for a team building workshop at Capital One. I'm delighted to bring Belinda to our online community here today. And now I hand over to Anu, who will take us to meet the artist and get the class started.
Wonderful. Thank you, BeiBei, and hello, everyone. It's so lovely to see everyone's faces. Thank you so much for joining. Yes, so I am absolutely delighted to introduce Belinda to all of you. It's interesting, Belinda, Renee, looks like you also have a Peninsula kid, and we all share, we all have kids who go to a similar school, and that's how I met Belinda many, many years ago. And what I love about Belinda's work is that she has found a way to blend her talent, visual art, with issues and causes that she cares deeply about, such as climate change. She has a really impressive background and resume, but I thought instead of reading through her bio, it might actually be more fun for me to just ask her a couple of questions and let her sort of tell us a little bit about her life, her journey, and what inspires. So I would love for you all to meet Belinda. Belinda, can you wave hi? So Belinda, let's start by having you just tell us, where are you calling in from today?
I am calling from San Mateo, my studio in California.
Wonderful. I'm seeing all your artwork at the back, and it looks like such an inviting and welcoming space to be. So thank you for inviting us into your studio today with you.
You're welcome.
Belinda, tell us a little bit about who or what inspires your art.
Well, over the years, originally I was inspired by very traditional art, Chagall and Picasso, and And then over time, I started being inspired more by ideas. So I love to research things. So I started researching things and went through a series and somehow landed on researching the climate issues. I have cochlear implants, which I got in 2015. And after I got those, I started listening to a lot of books, and that's how I got so deeply into the climate issues. And so pretty much for the last 5 years, I've been focused on that issue through my artwork, just raising awareness. And I try to present it in a way that will reach people's hearts and look more for solutions rather than thinking about all bad things that can happen. So I try to focus on the positive in in a difficult situation.
So much needed in the world today. So thank you for what you do. As you reflect back on your journey, both through your art and also through just your own physical challenges that you've had to deal with, what is the biggest learning or aha or surprise that sort of you think about as you reflect back at your life?
Well, the pandemic has been really hard because it has made me realize how much I like being around other people or need to be around other people. And so the part of me that likes to research things is like, well, why is that? Can see people on Zoom, they're still there, but it's not the same. So I think there's some chemical reactions that must occur when people are near each other, and we all these things flying through the air that we don't see. So it's kind of expanded my consciousness in that aspect of thinking about what is there that's going on when you're near other people.
Yeah, for sure. And until we can have that physical proximity again, I'm so grateful for this virtual space, right? Because it's just nice to see other people's faces. And the fact that we're all calling in from all parts of the world today, it's beautiful. So thank you for creating this play shop and allowing us all to be a part of it. I'll end with just one last question, which is when the pandemic is over, because it will be, right? Someday. What's the first thing you're going to do?
Yeah, I want to go to a party. I mean, that sounds, in a different world, that would sound kind of just not very deep, but somehow I'd like to go to a party.
Look forward to that. Great. Well, thank you, Belinda. Without any further delay, let me hand the mic over to you and let you take us through this beautiful play shop that you've created for us, Looking Deeper, Symbolism in Art.
Okay, thank you. I've taught symbolism before, but not quite in this venue. So this is new for me, doing the online teaching. So the first thing I wanted to do was to talk about symbols and how symbols are ubiquitous. They're everywhere in our world, and they have many, many purposes. And they historically probably go back to the very beginning of when humans started to recognize objects and think about something outside of their own self. So they have three overarching categories: is to identify, and to describe, and to create. So we use symbols like letters are all symbols. All the writing we do, the alphabet is symbols. It's around us everywhere. So we sort of take it for granted how it's everywhere. And this first symbol is one of my favorite. It's a symbol of hope and harmony. So a lot of what symbols do is they will mean different things for different people. So a culture brings meaning to the symbol. So this symbol, somebody might look at it and say, it looks like a family, or it could be, somebody coming together or going towards something, moving towards something. So they can mean many different things for different people, but it has to do with your culture and what your cultural meaning brings to it. So the next one, see, these are some of my favorite symbols, the sacred geometry. And The hobo symbols are really interesting. The hobo symbols were used in the 1930s by hobos that went across the country on the train in the United States. And they would make these symbols to tell other hobos what was safe or where to go or who were good people or what was, you know, and they were kind of like a secret code between the hobos. I think they're fascinating. There's a whole really interesting history behind that. And then of course, peace symbols are also some of my favorite. And the Chinese calligraphy is all very much symbolic, very complex symbolic writing. One of my favorite is the golden spiral. The golden spiral can be found throughout nature. And we're going to do I'm going to show you a little exercise about the golden spiral and how it's just very, it's found in a lot of different places. Here. Okay, it's also called the Fibonacci spiral. And it represents God, goddess, life, energy, and evolving journey. And it's found in human psychology, animals, plants, minerals, and nature, as well as weather patterns. It's a very sacred symbol, and it reminds us of our ever-evolving journey in life. So to me, it's one of the most fascinating symbols. And Fibonacci, there's some controversy about who actually discovered it, but they call it the Fibonacci spiral. But it goes way back in history, possibly back into Arabic writings. So it's a mathematical equation where they use different ratios to be able to come to a really pleasing pattern and something that is harmony. It creates harmony in your image. So I'm going to show you a YouTube video and explain it a little bit deeper, how to make a golden rectangle and a spiral, a golden spiral. So, okay, this is how to create a golden rectangle and a golden spiral. It's on YouTube, and it's going to walk us through how to create this. It's these shapes that will help you think of how to create harmony and a good composition. So you make a square and then you find the middle of your square. You can just also turn the paper to find the middle. And then you measure across that diagonal, and then that diagonal goes and it meets this extended line. And so then you make, this is how it's basically, they're making a rectangle now. So you continue the line to match the top side of the original square, and there you have a golden rectangle. And proportionally, it's supposed to be very pleasing to the eye. So it's a shape that just makes you kind of feel good. And so you remember that first square, that's the square within that golden rectangle. And then you look at the shape on the small rectangle, and it's a smaller version of the golden rectangle. And here's where it starts to get kind of interesting, because they turn it, and then they turn it again, and you can keep spiraling it and turning it into kind of infinity, as far as it would go back. So the golden spiral represents growth inward, but then also growth outward. So it's like becoming, but then if it's going out, so inward and outward, it can go both ways. So it can just keep going. And so then when you draw the spiral, it goes around and then comes, and you repeat it in each square to the corners. And then it can keep going on and on and on and on. And one of the things that fascinated me so much about this originally was that it's very much like the human cochlea, what you hear with a snail, but the cochlea, the shape of the human cochlea is this shape. So it goes in, and that's how you hear. That's how people hear. And there's little hair cells on there. Okay, so I wanted to show you that because it's a little bit of a hard concept to grasp, but it's a way to make your compositions and your images have harmony and create, it's just another tool in your toolbox to know how to create great, interesting, harmonious shapes. And it's a symbol that it's one of my favorite. So I'm going to go back to my presentation here. So on this, this bottom one, this one, you can see how they've used the golden spiral to make kind of a symbolic shape. And then on the rose, they've used it to create the center for a composition to make it pleasing to your eye. So you can make the focal point of the spiral in your composition. That can help you make your composition in your artwork. So playing with symbols, what I wanted to do that I thought, one of my oldest daughters involved in improv, and they do this thing where they make suggestions for symbols. So they'll say, does anybody have a suggestion for an animal or something to improv is a lot of play and pretend. So I thought it'd be fun if somebody has any suggestions we can write them in the chat, and I can show you my thought process of going through making a symbol, just to kind of give you an idea of what you might think of or how you might play with symbols. So anybody shout out, have a suggestion for a symbol they'd like to create?
There's request for peace and for the sea and for happiness.
Happiness.
And apparently girl power.
Girl power. So we have a few for you.
Let's see. Okay, so the first thing that I do is I think, okay, let's think of happiness, because that's what we all would like, is happiness. So what I'm gonna do is think of what color do I think of happiness? Like, is it, when I think of happiness, I kind of think of something bright, like sunshine. So I maybe pick a yellow color. And then I'm gonna make it, I think happiness is kind of organic and it should be something that grows. So then I'll think, okay, how can and it's also something that is I do think of happiness as being sort of circular, because you want it to be all the time. So I'm gonna pick orange because it'll be easier to see than yellow. Okay, so if I think, okay, I'm gonna make a circle because of all those things I said before. And then I'll think, what would happiness be in the circle? And I think, here you're thinking of concepts. So happiness is a concept. So concepts are going to be harder than, say, a concrete thing like an animal or a person or something like that. So if you choose a concept, it's a much harder thing to illustrate or to design than something you would see. So happiness, I have to think about, like, what would that mean? Is happiness something where you go deep? And how would you illustrate going deep? How would you illustrate going inward and thinking about things inside? So it's very subjective, but I might think, okay, and then it's going inward and going further and further in. And then I might think, okay, what if I put something in the center? Because you want to be centered when you're happy. You want to be very centered and think about that part that's calm in the center. So then maybe I would do something like that. So your symbol is very simple, but it speaks to you. So for me, this might become, this is just off the top of my head. And of course, it would be something that you could refine and work on and refine and work on and think about. But that's the thought process I would go through for making an abstract concept into a symbol. And then, of course, I'd think it through and think more about it in depth. Does that give you an idea of, like, how to think of a symbol? If you think of something concrete, it would be very, very different. Does anybody have something that's like a concrete?
There is the sea, which might be concrete. There is also 4-pointed for the North Star. So that may be concrete. Calming, soothing, that might be more of a concept.
Yeah, calming, soothing is a concept. The sea is a pretty easy one. I mean, you might think of the sea, the waves on the sea. The Egyptian hieroglyphs used a lot of these, really, if you look back at them, they used a lot of, they're very concrete. So they would have chariots, and they'd draw an actual chariot. They'd have a sword, it'd be an actual sword. So those are all symbols, though. They're symbols, and they speak right away to what you're trying to communicate. We changed our symbols into these very abstract alphabet letters, so that, you know, so that progression over time changed the way people thinking from these images of like the sea or a chariot into thinking about like an A or a B, and how those words would make meaning and communicate meaning to different people. So that, you know, you think about that, that really changed people a lot, and changed the way people interacted in the world and to each other. So we sped things up a lot when we changed to an alphabet like A, B, C, D. It speeds up the transmission of knowledge. So symbols are incredibly important, and also kind of incredibly taken for granted in our world. Anyway, that's a quick overview of symbols. The history of art and symbolism goes back. They first kind of thought symbolism, there was a movement in the late 1800s, and this one, that used symbolism, the idea of symbolism. So the whole piece kind of becomes a symbol. Artists started using their whole piece as a symbol to communicate an idea, to communicate a feeling they had, something one. And then it morphed into surrealism. Symbolism morphed into surrealism. And this is Lenora Carrington. She's one of my favorite lesser known surrealists. And she, if you look, has a little egg there. So it's kind of protecting life. You think of that sort of symbol. Eggs are a traditional symbol of life and birth, and then Aboriginal art uses a lot of symbols. These are like all kinds of different rainbows, and they told each other where to go. It was like this kind of secrets between them of in their artwork. And then this is an African art piece, which I really love this piece. He used symbols in the image. So that's what I thought we'd try to do, is to use symbols either in the golden spiral, or if you want to come up with your own shape or image, you can use symbols in your own shape. So let's see. So I was hoping everybody could think of 3 to 4 special people, places, or an animal that you love. And it can be an abstract concept, but as I said, that's a little bit harder. And then just to kind of jot that down and take a few minutes here to just kind of like look into yourself.
Belinda, there's a question here which may be helpful for some people, so I wanted to see if you have any quick response. From Phyllis, how do we get away from conventional or traditional symbols that are culturally embedded?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because I think we kind of don't realize how much a part of our culture we are. It's just something that you do unconsciously. You are your culture. You don't really think too much unless you've traveled a whole lot or read a whole lot about other cultures or lived in another culture. It's very hard to step outside your culture. I think the best way to do that is to look at other cultures' art, or other cultures' writing, or other cultures' ideas, in a way that is where you don't try not to bring your preconceived ideas to it. Like, say if you look at something that's so foreign to what you know, and there's no words with it, like Chinese calligraphy is a good example. You really have no idea what that means when you look at it. It's so foreign. and then you just kind of start to try to analyze it and think about it and really analyze the shapes. But it's thousands and thousands of years in the making, so it's not an easy thing to kind of go deeper into. But that's the best I can say, is just to try to do a lot of research on it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so she's saying, yes, maybe it's not so much about getting away, but more about varying them to make them ours.
Yeah. Oh, you know, like Picasso and the European artists in the early 1900s, they did that with African art and a lot of different art. They went and they kind of researched it and they sort of made it theirs. I think that Americans do, and Europeans do that a lot. They appropriate a lot of other cultures into their own culture, and then they think it's theirs.
Okay, so how long do we have to appropriate our own and other cultures and come up with some symbols?
Right. I don't know. Maybe 5 minutes. Let's do 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay. All right.
One of the things that I read that I really liked was we a lot of times associate symbols with trademarks and logos and commerce and things like that. But early symbols, they served an entirely different function, and that was to organize order from chaos. So I think that you know, thinking about those deeper origins, organizing order from chaos, I find that to be very poignant. First step, even if you have only one symbol, that's fine, or shape that you love, or like what we can do then is when you go to do your, say, your artwork, and you have, say you have, this is a piece of paper. Can you see it? Is it working?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So say this is your piece of paper, roughly the shape of the golden rectangle. If you want to, the reason I gave you the shape of the spiral is so that you would have some sort of structure to your art piece. So if you have this spiral, say, it's just approximate. Then if you take your symbol that you created, I'm just going to do a circle to make it easy, and you do your circle, and we're going to make different shapes. Boy, you can use your own shape too. Like the African art used the shape of two faces. That's like looking at things different ways. That was his. So say you have your symbol. This is just very rough. And you do that all through here. And then if you have, you could change colors and keep the same symbol and do it in the other space. So the spiral is just like inspiration. You could use anything, but it's just a starting point for you to think about, like, or you could take, and you can do that throughout the whole thing. All that shape in there, and then and then you can go as far as whatever you would like. Say if you wanted to take another shape, then it might follow the spiral. So it's a launching point for you to create a piece of artwork, and think about the space and the shape and the symbol and what you would want it to be. But the golden spiral is a symbol. So it's a symbol thinking about, like Gina has that.
So that's O'Keefe, yeah.
Yeah, so George O'Keeffe was inspired by the golden spiral. So it's a launching point. It's a symbol. The golden spiral is a very ancient archetypical symbol. So you could use any image, but it's one that is thought of. The golden spiral is it's one that it's organic and it's balanced and it's aesthetically pleasing, and that's why I chose that one. And it's one that is goes throughout nature, so it's a very ancient symbol. So I just thought you could use a symbol to create a placeholder for other symbols. So like think about going deeper, because then in the spiral it spirals down deeper and deeper and deeper. So thinking of it in that way, it's a placeholder for other symbols.
There's another example. I don't know if you can see it. The serpent, which is exactly.
Yeah.
So the spiral is a symbol, but it's what I think, if I understand you correctly, it can also be used as a composition guide for the other symbols, your personal symbols, as a structure for the other, as a composition, as a framework to hold your other symbols, to make a integrated image.
Yes. Yeah.
Exactly. Dimensions are very pleasing to the eye because they're all over nature and we're so used to them. So we don't even know they're there actually.
Yeah.
But lots of nature is organized around that specific ratio, the golden ratio, which is also, so if you divide one of the numbers with the next, you get this constant ratio. And everything, like even in the human body, a lot of the growth that happens proportionally is based on that. So it's everywhere and we're so used to it, we take it for granted. So that's why it's not just for symbols, it's actually for any kind of painting, right? Or architecture or design. If you use that as a template to build something on top of it, automatically whatever you're building will look much nicer than if you just free-handed it.
Yeah, just to kind of like provide, because there's two threads. There's the golden ratio spiral idea, and it's prevalent in nature. And then there's the composition of new symbols. And so you can use the spiral idea as a scaffold on a page for putting symbols. You could also put it internal, and then just made little spiral.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
It's just, it can be used in multiple ways. But I'd also appreciate learning more about, Belinda, how you connect in your work the spiral to like the deliverable.
Yeah.
So I see you guys went for Hermes.
What is that, Gina?
Hermes Trismegistus. It's pretty much, I don't know if you've heard of the emerald tablets. He's otherwise known as Thoth in Egyptian mythology, but he's the Greek version of it. So most of Western mysteries come from Hermes. And Hermes is a representation, like the representation is the wings that Daniel and Sasha had. I mean, I don't know if that's what they had in mind, but that's how it's represented. Or it's represented also by Mercury. So if you see like the symbol of Mercury, it's Hermes. And it's the god of commerce, god of travel. And he's the one who transmits knowledge. So he's very deeply connected to symbology.
Nice, great interpretation. I think it speaks to the fact that everybody will unpack a symbol in their own knowledge and in their own framework, and that the symbol goes beyond any one phrasing of it, and also that we can draw from deep traditions to come up with new formats. So it's not always just about appropriation versus not appropriation. That's an often externally defined line for the artist, and there's always ways to reinvent symbols.
Yeah.
That, and I feel like often symbols are archetypal, right? Which goes beyond culture. They're so deep down in the subconscious and unconscious. Like if you read about Jungian psychology, that's what he talks about. And we're not even aware that they're there, right? Like we would draw things that we don't really know what they mean, but they speak deep down to us. And that's, I think it's beyond culture, actually.
And this golden spiral really isn't the human creation. It's more like a discovery. We discovered the universe, the nature and the universe kind of put this beautiful pattern there everywhere in its creation. And we just discovered it.
Yeah, it's at the center of all galaxies, right? It's also the galaxies.
Yeah, that there is order, that it's not all just chaos, that there is a certain order to things, the way they work.
It's the language of the universe, right?
Yeah. Like, I think the circle is one of those very basic ones that transcends culture. So I find it
end or beginning.
Yeah, it's just very, very much touching on the whole. It's a very complex, deep subject that you could spend years looking at and thinking about, and I find it fascinating. It's one of my favorite things to think about.
If anyone is interested, this is an excellent book about symbols.
That's the one I have too.
I think anybody who deals with any kind of symbol, this is an amazing book.
It's essential reading to interpret the mainstream media.
Very true.
And I'll say that on Zoom too.
And movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the symbology that goes in movies, it's incredible.
The other thing about the golden spiral is it can be used to create other shapes. Like that first one that I showed you, this one. They used that spiral to create other shapes. So that can, and it's that ratio that's pleasing to the eye. So that's one of the ways that it could be used to create a symbol. And then you could take other things and put it within, within that. It's just rough. How is everybody doing? Should we a few more minutes, or you want to start? Maybe some people could start sharing. does anybody else have any, I wrote a closing, a little, Charles Baudelaire, he said something that has always kind of spoken to me, and I wrote it on the Facebook page. I don't know if you saw it. It says, in nature's temple, living pillars rise, speaking sometimes in words of abstruse sense. Man walks through woods of symbols, dark and dense, which gaze at him with fond, familiar eyes. That's from Correspondences from Charles Baudelaire, and I thought that was a nice kind of closing statement to kind of think about, like how symbols surround us, and we, the more we're aware of them, the more we can kind of make our lives richer through them. So I hope that you all have a wonderful weekend, and I'm going to give it back to BeiBei. I think we have another play shop next Saturday too.
Yes, yes. It was interesting that you were reading that closing statement. That's a very good segue to our next session will be on poetry, right? Carrie will be the one leading us. So very much looking forward to that. Thank you, Belinda, for a wonderful session. I was just, when you were talking about the how, you know, why the Fibonacci, the golden spiral and the golden rectangle, I just thought of the you know, this emerging field of neuroaesthetics, and they're studying, you know, that discipline or subdiscipline. It's studying the neurobiological basis of, you know, of the aesthetic experiences, you know, why we find certain things, shapes and colors pleasing to our mind. I'm sure Daniel and Sasha know a lot more about that, but anyway.
You know, we're really excited for our session coming up. I think each of these topics, there's a lot to build on, and a lot that is across sessions without even being planned. So there'll be a lot to talk about and do.
Great. Looking forward.
Yes, absolutely. So, well, thank you everybody for coming. We don't want to hold you any longer, even though this was so much fun.
Thank you.
Well, have a great weekend, and we look forward to seeing you in a week in Carrie's session.
Thank you.
Okay, love you all. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye, baby.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.